Risen from the deepest trenches of a fathomless ocean is the Brine King, known by the Asmirian people as Tsoagoth, a treacherous, nasty god of fish and sea. After we kill the beast in Act 4, awaken the gods of Wraeclast from their slumber, and face Kitava and Innocence in Oriath, Tsoagoth lurks the salty waters and shimmering wreaths around Lionai's Watch, gathering a following of drowned sailors, horrific monsters, and one of our first allies in Path of Exile. Alas, the Brine King's story doesn't start once we shake the gods from their sleep. It begins long ago, in an older age of Wraeclast. This is RJ. Welcome to another Path of Exile video on Talkative Triceratops. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button and sub-notification bell for consistent lore and discussion videos about the best games out there. Now, let's begin. Like many of the gods in the realm of Wraeclast and the greater world of Path of Exile, Tsoagoth began as a mere man. Human tribes roam the coasts of Wraeclast, fighting for territory, resources, and supremacy over the other cultures of the land. Many of them are fisher tribes. Tsoagoth leads one of these fisher tribes. Unlike many others, though, that lead through force and fear, he is beloved. Thanks to his bold leadership, his tribe prospers and rises above the rest of these seafaring folk. His people praise him. Children follow in his image. Women seek his hand. This, though, leads to the creation of his future, abominable self. Tsoagoth is clearly above the rest of his brethren in terms of charisma and strength, and no one rivals him, not even the children raised by others who seek to replicate his charm and gaze. Thus, he looks inward and realizes a truth. Only he can create descendants capable of rising to his level, to becoming the next great leader of the fish tribes here in Wraeclast. With his vast wealth and power, he forges a city upon the waves, Tsoagoth. Herein, he gathers the fisher tribes and bands them together into a formidable force, but in reality, he seeks something else from them, a legacy. With the women of Tsoagoth, he attempts to recreate himself. Fishwife after fishwife he takes, but to everyone's surprise, each pregnancy ends not in the birth of a potential great leader of Tsoagoth, but in the spawn of a terrifying monster. Child after child is born, each more mutated than the last. None are considered human. Most are not even viewed as humanoid. Truly, they are bestial descendants of the mighty Tsoagoth. Tsoagoth is cursed. As time passes and Tsoagoth the Brine King attempts to create the perfect descendant, he transforms into a beast, an abomination, a god amongst mere mortals, himself. His ceaseless attempts at making an offspring affected his body, turned him not into the ideal specimen of a human, but an ugly monster, and the looks he received by others and by his own gaze and the all-surrounding mirror of water kick-started the growth of a grand, crusty shell around his form. So begins his transformation into the massive crustacean creature we battle in Path of Exile's 6th act. Quickly, the population of Tsoagoth wanes and Tsoagoth must venture out into the greater world for new mates, his quest to create himself again not complete. He sweeps the seas and takes partner after partner, but each offspring continues to spawn as an abomination. The curse continues, and the god becomes a horrifying legend. No sailor casts off without muttering a prayer to the Brine King. To refrain from naming him as the master of the oceans and their trenches is to invite death upon their vessels. No one wants that. Some superstitious folk take this to new heights as time passes and Tsoagoth grows his kingdom of beast and brine, as we'll learn from Bestel, the great poet of Lionai's Watch, right now.
You won't find a sailor that doesn't whisper a quiet prayer to the Brine King before casting off. In fact, under the maddening radiance of a full moon, the more superstitious captains would drown some poor slave or failed mutineer just to keep old Tsoagoth happy. No, that wasn't a sneeze. That's the fish god's old Asmirian name. It's considered foul luck to speak it on board a ship. A keel-hauling offence.
This tradition continues even when sin forges the beast and all the gods rest, including Tsoagoth, who collapses into the ocean along with his slaughterhouse city of Tsoagoth. Both are lost for ages, but the Brine King's name remains on the lips of sailor and pirate, and many innocents are drowned for the fish god. Flash to the present story of Path of Exile 1's campaign. When we, the Exile, kill the beast, the gods awaken from their long slumber. Among them is Tsoagoth, the Brine King. He rises from the abyssal depths of the deep and begins his spree of pillaging and spawning yet again. As we defeat innocents and are nearly obliterated by Kitava and Oriath, Tsoagoth sets his eyes on Lionai's Watch and its people. Nearby, he carves out a small reef to be his kingdom and begins calling monsters to his briny banner. Saved by Lily Roth, we land in Lionai's Watch and are advised by Sin to begin somewhere smaller than Kitava, to defeat a few lesser gods before we try to defeat the Kurui god of hunger again. Meanwhile, Tsoagoth terrorizes this little piece of our lives and corrupts someone who helped us long ago, Nessa. She poses as a damsel in distress, someone who seeks the death of Tsoagoth and believes we're the one to do it. Slowly, she leads us to the Brine King through the region we walked so long ago in pursuit of Merveil and the Val Oversoul. She claims the King of Brine, who turned her into a mermaid-like creature, wishes to use her as he used countless others in the past. A friend of ours since our first foray into Wraeclast, we follow her without question, and with Waylam Roth's help, sail to Tsoagoth's reef. We slaughter hundreds of briny beasts here, and eventually reach Tsoagoth himself, Nessa perched atop his grand shell. Smugly, Nessa reveals her adoration of the Brine King to us.
So strong, so dedicated. A man like you would never disappoint a lady in need. You're a gift, don't you see? A sumptuous feast for His Majesty on his wedding day. Really, we are both so touched by your generosity.
One of our first allies in Wraeclast turns on us in favor of the King of Brine, and we battle them both. The fish god lurches at us and slams down a claw. We deftly move side to side, sparring with him and hundreds of shelled creatures of the sea. As the battle progresses, Nessa emerges from Tsoagoth and commands the waters to surround us, speaks to the storms, and calls lightning onto the field of battle. Weaving through the storms, waves, and hordes of crabs, we persist through the fight as the sea grows closer to us and our space to move lessens. Eventually, we swirl around the god and human duo, desperately poking at any weakness in the god's shell. With an ultimate blow, we kill Tsoagoth and Nessa. Both collapse to the watery sand, and Sin slams into the ground from the sky to absorb the fish god's soul. Curious, eh? More on Sin's ambitions at another time. There, though, on a far-off reef with us overlooking his corpse, is where the tale of Tsoagoth ends. Distant from his sunken city of Tsoagoth, crashed atop his final bride, and still without a worthy heir. Through death, his curse lifts and disappears into the aether of Wraeclast. Surely, though, his legacy isn't gone. Forevermore, voyagers of the sea shall repeat the legend of the King of Brine, sacrifice sailors to the depths, and worry that in the midst of night, an abomination of shell and savagery shall visit them and consume what they hold dear, all in the pursuit of perfection. This is RJ. Thanks for watching another Path of Exile video on talkative Triceratops. If you enjoyed the story of Tsoagoth, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video and others with your fellow exiles, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Farewell.